What happened on April 1st was that Israel, in what is not an irregular occurrence, a bombing inside of Syria, hit and targeted the Iranian consulate in Syria, killing, I believe it was 3 of its top generals in the IRGC, several military advisors. The most notable general was Mohammad Reza Sahidi. And this has caused, of course, a firestorm at the United Nations. Russia has condemned this as a terrorist attack. Russia and Israel's relations have been quite strained, especially with regard to these strikes in Syria, which Israel has stopped communicating with Russia about. But Scott, I wanted to get your analysis of this moment, because just when we thought, or maybe had been observing, a lot of pendulum swings rhetorically when it comes to the United States, when it comes to this current conflict in this region, Israel just once again unloads a pretty big and whopping attack that seems to threaten the security, not just of the region, but the world. So your reactions to this, what is truly a war crime?
Well, first of all, I mean, it is literally a war crime. Israel struck a diplomatically protected facility. So under international law, under all the norms and values of various conventions that protect these diplomatic facilities from attack, Israel violated. But let me take this in a slightly different direction, not to defend Israel, but I'm going to put on my military hat for a second. It wasn't just, I mean, everybody's focusing on, Mohammad Reza Zahidi and saying, oh, they killed another senior Quds Force leader. And yes, they did. But that's not the point. It's the 3 other guys that make this even more of an important target. Zahidi oversees the region. The 3 other officers that were there, the senior officers, one was responsible for Quds support for Palestine. That is, he's the guy that supplies the weapons to Hamas. The other one is the guy who oversees Quds operations in Yemen. He's the guy that supplies the Yemenis with the weapons. And the other guy was the guy that oversees Quds operations in Iraq. He supports the pro-Iranian Iraqi militias. They just launched an attack where a drone struck the Israeli port of Eilat. So now let's just sit back and say we're Israel. All right. I'm going to pretend for a second that I'm an Israeli intelligence officer. And I'm going to say, boss, we're getting the snot kicked out of us from Yemen. The Iranians have been providing weaponry up to and including perhaps new hypersonic missile capability. And the guy who oversees that is sitting in a building in Damascus right now. We know he's there. They're planning a big coordination because there's no reason to have these 4 people together under one roof. They are planning the next phase of operations, how to coordinate the supply of Hamas with the supply of Hezbollah, with the supply of Yemen, with the supply of Iraq, how to coordinate all of this. It's a giant campaign meeting. I mean, in the Axis of Resistance history, this is one of the more important meetings that has ever taken place, because you are in a critical struggle between the Axis of Resistance and Israel. And now you have the big man, and then you have the 3 big guys for the different regions all in one place. So we're getting whipped in Yemen. He's there. If we take him out, we disrupt that. We just intercepted a large arms shipment to Hamas coming from Iran, but for every one you get, 3 or 4 got through. Okay, so the guy that does all that, he's there too. And they just fired a drone out of Iraq that hit our port facility. That can keep coming. The guy that coordinates all that, he's there. They're all there. If there was ever a time to do something bold, this is it. This is the time. We will probably never have this opportunity again. So strike now, strike decisively, take them all out, disrupt this. The price that we'll pay will be big, but the risk is huge, but the reward, unprecedented. So Israel did it. Now, when you look at it from that standpoint, it's no longer insane. It's no longer, oh, those Israelis have gone unhinged, they're off. It's a rational act where Israel weighed the risk rewards and decided, yeah, we're going to pay a price, but we're already paying a price. We're already isolated. We're already being called genocidal because we are genocidal. We don't care anymore. We are. So we are all the evil that the world makes us out to be. And here's our chance to do some significant harm to Iran. And also Israel, in looking at it, says, what will Iran do? What will Iran do? And the answer is not much. Not much. So Israel did it. Israel took the shot, and one hell of a shot it was. Now, from the Iranian perspective, I mean, look, again, I don't want to be critical of Iran, but what the hell were you thinking? Putting Israel strikes targets in Syria all the time. And a lot of the targets they strike are Iranian targets. And the Iranian targets they strike often imply that Israel has very good intelligence. Israel has Damascus wired, 100%. Go back and look at some of the accounts that have come out. And again, I'm very bad with names, so I apologize to your audience, to you. But Mugnia, Imam Mugnia, the big, he was the guy that was involved in the attack on the American embassy and or the American Marine barracks in Beirut. And he went on to be one of these big guys and has when Israel always had it out for him, always wanted to kill him. And there was a time when they finally got him. They're tracking him in Damascus. They have guys in the building tracking him and waiting till he's isolated before the strike comes in. I mean, Israel has Damascus wired. So why in God's name would you put, knowing this? Because the Iranians have effective counterintelligence. I have respect for them. I mean, they've reverse engineered Israeli plots all over the place. They know what Israel's capable of doing. Israel has guys operating in Tehran, throughout Iran. They got Syria. Why would you put all your eggs in one basket? What, you're protected by diplomatic immunity? Really? No. I mean, Israel just proved it don't matter. They took the shot. So I think Iran has to take a step back right now, and they have to regroup. This is a big blow. The one thing you don't want to do now is go out and kick a hornet's nest and begin a series of escalatory retaliation moves when your top leadership has been taken off. This is as if Dwight Eisenhower, Omar Bradley, George Patton, and Montgomery were caught in one place and the Germans hit them before D-Day. Do you really want to begin D-Day and all that stuff, just losing these four guys, or do you want to sort of find out who the replacements are, get the command structure settled down, et cetera? So I don't know what Iran can do. Their best bet right now is to let Russia run interference at the United Nations, to get global condemnation of Israel, to further the strategic shaping of global dissent towards Israel, and then wait for an opportunity to do something like. But I mean, one natural retaliation mode would be to hit the airbase where the F-35s came out of. Iran knows where it is. They have missiles that can hit. So they could do that, and they'd be legitimate. There'd be legitimate retaliation. Strike the place from whence the strike came. But then what? Now Israel starts striking Iran. Are the Iranians ready? Their leadership is disrupted. Is this what they want to do? Are they ready to engage in this? Iran right now is preparing for a big BRICS summit in October. And I know it's October. Everybody's going, it's not that long away in the world of diplomacy. There's a lot of papers being presented. Russia's right now trying to orchestrate, the creation of institutions that, Iran's there. There's papers being exchanged about inviting in new members. And this is, a big focus for Iran. And suddenly now you want a war with Israel? I mean, so I think the Israelis knew exactly what they were doing. I think they knew why they wanted to do it. And I think they understand the limitations that are on Iran. Now, Iran could surprise everybody tomorrow and launch a massive retaliation against it. And to be honest, at this point in time, I don't know how much longer Syria and Iran can continue to absorb this Israeli action. Israel feels no deterrence from them. There are no consequences for this. Yes, the Iranians struck a Mossad base in Erbil, killing a number of Mossad operatives operating out of Erbil. But in terms of doing something of this magnitude, I mean, you'd have to get the chief of staff of the Israeli armed forces, the head of intelligence. You'd have to get senior leaders like that together before you have something like-minded. So I think that Iran right now is in a pickle. They've got to repair this. And this. You've traveled in the Middle East. It's not, in the United States, we operate based upon position. So I get appointed in a position and I come in and it's not Scott Ritter, and you get to know me. It's, Scott Ritter, who is this rank and this position with this portfolio. And basically what happens is you can be plugged in, plugged out. If Scott Ritter has a bad day, they can fire Scott Ritter and then they can bring in, Danny Haiphong and plug it in. And now you're Danny Haiphong with this rank, this title and this portfolio, and you're falling in on agreed upon policy positions that you're going to articulate in favor of and do the job. So it's not so much personality dependent. In the Middle East, all these things that happen here happen because of personal relations. This is a guy sitting down and drinking a lot of tea, with his counterparts and getting to know them, getting comfort levels. You just don't replace somebody like that. You don't fire them and then somebody slide in and go, all right, let's get going, because they got to go. Well, we don't know you. We don't trust you. Who are you? Why are you here? We need to talk. And so it takes time to build relations. So to lose 4 guys of this caliber who are responsible for doing the interfacing with the Yemenis, with the Houthi, with the militias in Iraq, with Hezbollah, and with Palestine, I mean, they're gone. And there's deputies that accompany them, but are the deputies ready to step up? Are they of sufficient grade, rank? Do they have the experience? Mohammed Reza Zahidi, he's a guy that, has been in Lebanon and running this since 2002. 20 years, this guy has been out there drinking tea. I mean, and that's the key to it, drinking tea, sitting down, drinking tea, talking. How do you replace that? So this is a big blow to Iran, a huge blow to Iran, but I don't know what Iran can do, because you don't want to begin a cycle of escalation when your leadership is in disarray, because if you do that, all this axis of resistance can start getting out of sync. They need to get people in place, get the axis of resistance back to functioning before they talk about any major escalatory moves. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, I think it's a good point you made about this being a response to the axis of resistance, a response to how Israel has become more isolated. I mean, in the same vein, literally within 24 hours, you had Israel striking the aid convoy, the World Central Kitchen aid convoy, 3 times. And Israel is denying, or at least Israel is communicating to the public through its public relations, that it wasn't intentional. The United States is saying it had no idea any of this was going to happen. The aid convoy, the strike against Iran in Syria. You mentioned the idea of Iran kind of banking on public opinion, world public opinion, continuing to shift against Israel, and also the role of the United Nations. Russia has been very vocal. What exactly then would be, you said what wouldn't be an appropriate response is escalation. And it's quite clear Iran, up until this point, and the entire axis of resistance, has been pretty calculated and careful. What would be the appropriate response given this balance of forces, given that there is this whole other story that is making the rounds internationally, Israel's attack on this aid convoy? And of course, the U.S. is complete and utter denial, despite the fact that it's giving Israel a whole bunch of money and weapons. I believe it just approved a whole bunch of fighter jets for Israel just within the last 24 hours. So, Scott, back to you.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's been approved yet. There's I forget what the number is. It's a big number in the billions, but it revolves around 50 F-15E Strike Eagle aircraft being provided to Israel over the course of the next 2 or 3 years. So it's not like an immediate aid package. But understand again, the F-15E Strike Eagle is designed to do one thing and one thing only, and that's attack Iran. It's a long-range strike aircraft that gives Israel the capability. So 50 is a lot of F-15Es. You need that kind of numbers. One of the things that Israel has had one of the constraints Israel had is not just the concept of initiating an airstrike against Iran, but sustaining it, to have sufficient air power to sustain it. So these 15 F-15Es would give Iran or give Israel, a sustainability factor. But again, that's 2 to 3 years down the road. But it shows you the direction that the United States is thinking in regards to Israel in the long term and Iran. And again, we'll just back up for a second. I don't believe for a second when the United States says we didn't know anything about it. That's just a bald-faced lie. The CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, every American intelligence agency is heavily involved with Israel right now. They have cells forward deployed in Israel, co-located with their Israeli counterparts, working on this issue right now. Not just the issue of Gaza and Hamas, but on the issue of Hezbollah and Iran, escalation management, escalation control. And the key aspect to it is shared intelligence. And so the idea that, Israel finds this golden opportunity for it in Syria, and that intelligence isn't known by the U.S. and reported back. I would love to see the presidential daily briefing of yesterday or this morning, because this is the kind of stuff that gets a nice article. The Iranian brain trust gathers in Syria. There it is. And I have to be honest. If I were an American president and I'm looking at that, thinking, okay, how do we manage this Iranian problem? A thought that would be going through my mind is, why don't we take them out? I mean, first of all, because if I'm an American president, I'm a warmonger. If I were an American president, I wouldn't be thinking that. I'd be thinking, how do we make peace? Can I send diplomats over to negotiate? But, an American president that's gone through the school of rock, so to speak, and to become American president is already forward-leaning, aggressively military-oriented. It's a target. And I can guarantee you with the highest degree of certainty that the United States was aware of this intelligence, that was reported all the way up the chain of command. They may not have been informed of the strike the way they claim that they got the information of the strike right at the last second. That may be true, but that's just a deliberate act by Israel, to provide cover for the United States. But I can guarantee you that we knew about the intelligence, and there was an officer, of my pay grade or higher in Israel, who is a counterpart to an Israeli air planning officer, because I've been working with him for the last 3 years on how to bomb Iran. I mean, I'm the guy, not me, but I'm just saying my equivalent is the guy sitting there with the Israelis saying, which targets do we strike? What aircraft do we need? What refueling capacity do we need? How do we get to the State Department to negotiate air corridors over Iraq, over Saudi Arabia? How do we do all this? How do we keep the flow of aircraft going in? How do we get the ammunition going in? This whole resupply operation that's taking place right now is premised on, ammunition loads that Israel would need to continue an air war with Iran. So the idea that this American officer who's been sitting there planning with his Israeli counterpart how to bomb Iran suddenly goes, oh, I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know what he's doing. Of course, you know what he's doing. He missed last night's meeting. Why? Because you got the phone call. Something's going on in Syria. It's happened before. He goes away. And what, you're silent, or do you do what you're supposed to do? Call up your boss and say, hey, I think something brewing over at Israeli Air Force headquarters. They've got an all-nighter, ordered pizza in, and stuff's happening. Looking at the flash intel, it looks like something's going on in Damascus, big strike going in, and you report in. So the idea that America didn't know anything about this is an absolute lie. We knew everything about it, except maybe the exact moment when Netanyahu ordered the strike. But we knew everything about this.
Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyDhaiphong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.